doing you as a model.
Hi, and welcome to Living History. My name is Mary Ann Tashko, and it's my pleasure to be interviewing prominent citizens of the Canal Valley. And today, I'm very honored to have with us not only a prominent citizen, but a very well-known movie star from the golden era of movies. She's done over 45 motion pictures and starred in such movies as The Secret Life of Walter Mitty and The Best Years of Our Lives that won 9 Academy Awards. I'd like you to meet Miss Virginia Mayo. Welcome.
How do you do, Mary Ann?
It's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
When did you come to the Canal Valley?
1965.
And what brought you out here?
Well, my husband and I had some mistakes that we'd made in our lives, and well, he wanted to live in Ireland, he thought. So we got bundled up, all our family, my daughter and Kent and me, and we all flew over to Ireland. Well, it was a big mistake because we weren't happy there. It was not as pleasant as Thousand Oaks. I mean, Thousand Oaks is the living end, don't you think? I love it here. Anyway, we went to Ireland. We stayed about, 6 months maybe. And Mary said to her daddy, "When are we going home?" Well, that's too much for a daddy to take. So he said, "Well, we're going home very soon, darling." And we did. We didn't stay very long, and we came back to the United States. And we had no home anymore because we let it go. Foolishly, you know, we weren't business people. You know, we were actors and entertainers, and we didn't think much about business, which is the wrong thing to do. I mean, everybody's listening should think twice before they leave where they have their home, and consider every element about living outside of the country. Well, we made that big mistake, and it cost a lot, of course. But at the time we came back, we had to stay in a motel. What is so dreary, you know, staying in a motel.
Was that in Thousand Oaks?
No, it was in the valley.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to stay there because we had no home anymore. And so I began looking around, you know, what is good around California. So I used to drive around and see certain developments to see if I liked them. Well, I drove up to Thousand Oaks, which was a very small community then. And I looked around, and there was a developer in the north area who was showing, almost an acre of land, and you could build your house. Well, I suddenly got excited because I liked what I saw in Thousand Oaks. It was country. And it was, that was in 1965, and it was no developments around. It was just like country. And I went home right away and told my husband that it's lovely out there. Let's go look again. So we did. We went out and we looked at Thousand Oaks. I think it was, what was it called? Well, it had some name about ranchos. And so we talked to the man who was there representing the company, and we said, yeah, we like it here, I think. I mean, my husband and I had sort of agreed, and he did agree with me that it was beautiful. And so we right away signed a contract to buy the land that he was offering.
And you've been here ever since.
Uh-huh.
I want to hear about
that?
I want to hear about your career. You weren't born in California.
No.
Where were you born?
I was born in Missouri.
And when did you come to California? Or what brought you? Were you discovered in?
I was discovered in New York. Sam Goldwyn used to do an annual trek to New York City to find talent. Most of the big producers did that. They wanted to see the people in New York mostly, because usually a performer would go to New York eventually, you know, because that's where all the talent was, and the big shows and all.
And you were doing theater at the time.
I was doing a show for Billy Rose, the famous Billy Rose.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to do a new show, and I had 2 partners that were with me in the act. They were playing in a horse act. They were in skins, you know, and it was a comedy act.
They were dressed like dressed like a horse.
2 men inside of a horse skin.
Got it.
And they did funny things, you know. it was a really wonderful act. It was very, very funny, very amusing, very standard. It would never change year to year. So he saw me doing this, Sam Goldwyn, and he asked to see me in his office. And I went to see Mr. Goldwyn.
He was a character, I understand.
Well, very, very much a character. I mean, people all make imitations of him the way he used to talk. He was a wonderful producer. However, he would never put anything on the screen that wasn't good, quality stuff. I mean, he'd even destroy a set if he didn't like it, you know, and use his own money. So he was very keen on having the quality. Sam Goldwyn, quality, that was his motto, really. And so I signed up with Sam Goldwyn.
What year was that?
It was like 1940, 41.
41.
I can't really remember all of the details of that.
So they sent you to California.
Yeah, he sent me to California.
How did you arrive? Did you come by train or?
Train, no airplanes.
And you came in at Union Station in Los Angeles?
No, in Pasadena. That was the usual way they did it. And they met me, the studio people, he had other people working for him. They met me at the train station and talked to me and said, well, we've got your car here, so let's go. And we went. We went driving to, well, they put me in Mae West's apartment house that she owned called Ravenswood. It's still there.
That's still there on Highland.
Uh-huh.
I know where that is.
And I had my little dog. I never traveled without my little dog. And I had the dog. She was on the train with me. And they said, okay, let's get in. We went into the car and we drove and drove. Finally, we got to Mae West's place. And they showed me in, and I stayed one night. The next morning, they said, look, Miss Mayo, you'll have to get out. Miss West doesn't allow any dogs in the apartment. Well, this is a lady I don't like anymore. I didn't like her then. Anyway, I had to get out. It was her building, you know. If she didn't want me there, I'd have to get out. So the people took me somewhere else, and we conferred a little about where to go, and somebody came up with an idea of an apartment house in West Hollywood that took animals. Didn't care, you know. Okay, so we went over there, and I stayed there for about a week or two. And it was okay. I didn't like Hollywood because I didn't have a car. You know, you can't get anywhere without a car. And so I was walking all over the drugstore to get some lunch or whatever. And it was a very unpleasant situation, believe me. I didn't care about it.
What was the first thing they had you do? What was the first motion picture?
Studio?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, they let me get settled. First of all, he wanted me to have some kind of lessons. Sam Goldwyn wanted me to have voice lessons and dancing lessons. And he didn't put me to work in a movie until, well, let's see. I did some tests for Sam Goldwyn, and he had a coach brought in from New York, and I worked with the coach. It was very pleasant. But I still didn't have transportation, and that was hard on me.
And the studio didn't pick you up?
No, they didn't. They didn't consider that their responsibility. So there I am trying to live in Hollywood without a car. So.
Well, we went on your official website, which is a very nice website, by the way, and we came up with some pictures of your career and a few things, and we wanted to look at them, and maybe you could share some memories.
All right.
The first one, it's on the screen right here. It's a movie called Colorado Territory, and you're co-starring with Joel McCrea.
Joel McCrea.
And that interested me because
he was a resident.
Yes.
One of the first that ever bought land around here.
Were you close with the McCreas?
Not Francis, but Joel was a wonderful man, a darling man. He loved everybody. Francis was a little cool. She was not my friend. Joel was. When I first moved into our house we finally built, he came over to my house as in a small town people would do that. They'd come and visit a newcomer. And we had a little meeting at first, and it was very nice of Joel. He was then an old-timer, he was in pictures very, very early on.
What was that movie about?
This movie?
Obviously a Western.
It was, I played a half breed, an Indian.
A
Half-breed.
blonde?
Well, they
Half-breed.
darkened my hair and I wore dark makeup. But it was such a wonderful part. I wouldn't turn that down. It was one of my favorite parts. Anyway, it was about these gangs. Joel was the head of the gang, and he had two members that lived in this, they called it Todos Santos. That was their hideout. These fellas that were robbers and bad men. But anyway, I joined up with them. It's part of the plot, you know. They saw me in El Paso or somewhere, and thought they'd have a nice woman in their group. So I hooked up with them, and then Joel, he was going to he's a train robber. Excuse me, I'm stuttering. He was a train robber, and he had these two other men that were going to be in the holdup. So then we did. I rode along. I was a good horsewoman, supposedly. And I had a double. I mean, I didn't know that much about riding on horses. But anyway, we did the picture in New Mexico. And I love New Mexico, even now, because New Mexico doesn't have hardly any traffic. You hear that? And what we have plenty of in California.
Yes, we do.
It's just too many. I mean, there's people coming in here, so.
Well, we've got some other pictures too. This looks like a studio shot.
Oh, have a satin dress on.
Is that from a movie?
I don't think so. No, that was from just stills. The studio used to take a lot of stills just to pass out, you know, around the country, wherever.
It's beautiful.
And, these are all stills from this.
Yeah.
This one here is from The Princess and the Pirate.
Well, hang on. What's
This?
We have
That's Bob Hope.
another one to
Hmm?
wait for that to come up.
A big picture or a small one like this?
It's a big picture's going to come up.
Hmm.
What was your favorite movie?
Oh, I just can't tell you. I think.
Here it is.
Here's Ronnie
Right.
Reagan. What do you know? I
Ronald
made
Reagan.
2 pictures with Ronnie.
What movie was what?
The
two
first
movies?
first one we did together was The Girl from Jones Beach, and it was about a girl who was a school teacher, but worked she'd work at teaching people who come from Europe. Okay, well, he was pretending that he was, in order to meet me, he wanted to pretend that he was from Europe, and he talked with an accent. He was from Pilsen, with a comedy, of course.
What was it like working with Ronald Reagan?
Well, he was a wonderful person to work with. He knew his lines, you know, great, perfect. He was a gentleman at all times, and everybody adored him.
Here's Bob Hope. Now that's that big picture you were talking about.
Oh, yes, The Princess and the Pirate. And it looks like I'm sitting on his lap, doesn't it? But I'm not. I'm sitting on like a table or chair. And that was my first picture. And what a good chance I had. I had marvelous opportunities to first picture work with.
That was the very
Bob.
first picture you did with Bob Hope.
Yeah.
What's he like? And
He's wonderful. I mean, he's almost, you know, he's in his 90s, I believe, at this present time. And he was always a funny man on the set. He would goof off, never. He would always be playing golf or talking to his agents and say, let's write a new scene in here. This will fit right in here if we do this or that. He was always imagining some new part of the scene that he could improve. And he was great to work with because I liked that kind of an actor. You know, he was so full of fun. Very, very full of fun.
that's great. Here's another picture, and I think I know what this movie is.
Oh, she's working her way through college.
I've seen this movie.
It's good, isn't it?
Yes, this is where you're putting yourself through college
Yes.
in a burlesque house.
Right, and that's Ronnie, isn't it? Right
Yes,
there?
it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of a racy movie for that era.
Was it?
I don't know.
No, it wasn't. Not
No?
really. I mean, by the standards of today. I'm working in the burlesque house, and Ronald Reagan was my high school teacher in the movie. See, that's how I happen to know him.
Oh.
He comes backstage on my last night at the burlesque theater, and then we have a little conversation, and I say, well, I'm coming to your college because I want to learn to write. And so that's how I reintroduce myself, and he comes backstage and we talk about what I want to do. I plan to learn to write and then write scripts and so on. And he thought that was very admirable, but that was my last night at the burlesque place. So later on in the story, I get kicked out again because of working in a burlesque house. Really silly, isn't it? Now, nowadays, everything goes. But back then, it was accepted. I mean, to be not allowed to work in burlesque.
Here's another picture with a famous actor,
Oh,
Jimmy Cagney.
Look at Jimmy.
What movie is that?
White Heat.
White Heat.
Did you ever see that?
No, that's not one I've seen.
Oh.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's a gangster movie because Jimmy is the head of the gang. I mean, he came. I know this aside from the fact that he was in the picture. He came back to the studio. He had been on a freelance basis for a long time. He left Warner's, and then now this is his coming back. And he had Jack Warner was on the phone, telephone saying, Jimmy, this is your next picture. And he said he was mad as he could be. Jimmy, he did not want to do any more gangster pictures. Well, that's what he was famous for, you know. And the picture was a riot. It was so good. It was all about these gangsters, and I'm them all again. And anyway, it was such a good picture. Everybody raved about it. I mean, it got a lot of acclaim because it was so real. And Raoul Walsh directed it, my favorite director. And it was very popular. And at the end, you have to see this picture because people will talk about it. At the very end, his gang flees to this place. Well, where is it? It's in Long Beach, where all these oil rigs are, and everything is oil. I mean, what is it that blows up? Gas in these big round tanks. And Jimmy winds up there at the end of the picture, and he's shooting at the G-men that are out. They finally cornered him, and he's on top of the world. He says to his mom, "I'm on top of the world, Ma," and he screams it, and it blows all up in his face.
Oh.
It's a dramatic picture. You really ought to see it if you can.
So you did a lot of dramatic roles as well as musical comedy.
Yes. Well, this is one of the best gangster movies that was ever made, and I'm not telling you anything that you won't really like, because it's a fabulous picture.
Here's somebody else who's very famous, Gregory Peck.
Oh, there, isn't he, darling?
Yes, he is.
Oh, he is.
What movie's that?
That's called Captain Horatio Hornblower.
Oh.
Did you see that?
I know that movie, yes.
Yeah, well, it was about a period in England when he was a captain of his ship, and it's a love story, really, too. He's the captain, and we're on the ship, and it's, let's see, what else? Well, there's a love story, and he's already married. Too bad, you know. I'm on the ship, and we fall in love and all that stuff. And then we find out that he's married. Well, oh, that's too bad, because I'm in love with him, and he has to say, "Oh, I'm married, Mrs. What's my name in it? I forget." Anyway, I'm in love with him, and I fall in love with him, and then when we get to land, we come to shore, and he goes to in Plymouth, I think it is. His wife is there with the baby. No, his nurse is there with the baby, and he's got the baby, and he loves me too. So it's a sad situation. But lo and behold, what happens? I don't shoot
I don't know.
her.
I'll have
I
to
don't-
watch the
you have-
movie.
You have to go see the movie.
I'll have to see the movie.
But anyway, we do get together at the end.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well,
And,
you really lived through an exciting era which
I
will
know.
never come back again. What was that like?
Well, I had a real successful career because I'd played every kind of part, and I loved working in the movies because everything was so exciting and interesting. And then, but I wanted to dance in movies, and I never got the chance until the studio bought Milton Berle to Warner Brothers, and where I was under contract. And I said to them, "Well, I would do that part. It wasn't such a good part with Milton Berle, but if you let me do that and do musicals for me, I'd be happy to play in anything." So I did. I worked with Milton, did that picture, and then the studio gave me all these wonderful musicals that I wanted so badly. So I
That's
could
great.
dance. I love dancing.
That's-
So I've been very lucky as far as a career goes.
How would you like to be remembered?
Well, who's going to remember me?
I think a lot of people are.
Well, I mean, everybody's going to die, and then there'll be none of us left to talk about it. That sounds kind of awful, doesn't it? Well, I hope to see somebody in heaven, and I'm a Christian, and I hope to see all the other Christians up in heaven having a good time.
Do you have a personal motto that you live by?
Well, I'm, as I said, I go to church when I can, and I have always lived by the principles of Christianity, and it's the only way to live. I can see that. I mean, you do. At the end, we're all, immortal, and we all have to hope that we're going to a really great place according to what they tell us.
What do you think is your personal greatest achievement?
I don't think I've done anything, except I wanted to be a star, a movie star, and I did that, and I was happy with my career. I was never disgruntled about it. I thought, well, I've really done what I'd set out to do as a little girl, and I'm happy with my life. It was a very good life,
And how many people can say that?
I know some people are grouchy all the time, mad at the world because they didn't get what they wanted. Well, it seemed to me like I got most of what I wanted in life.
That's great.
But it's not over yet,
That's great. Well, I have certainly enjoyed talking to you, and there's a lot of movies I'm going to have to rent now.
Oh, yes,
so I
you
can
will.
see the end.
I'll tell you, these are all good ones. I wouldn't steer you into a bad movie.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure meeting
you.
you, and
Thank
thank you
you.
for joining us on Living History.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.